Hey everybody, welcome to our Unit 5 introduction here. This is our last unit in our course, so you finally made it. And we've got 3 chapters this time, chapters 15, 16, and 14. And the first chapter we're going to deal with here is some distressing content, and that's sexual victimization. We'll be talking about sexual assault, principally rape and child sexual abuse, which are definitely not comforting topics to cover, but we do need to address them because they are serious issues, not just in our own Western society, but they're problems all over the world, as I'm sure you're probably aware of there. We're going to go ahead and define what we mean by sexual assault and then start working our way down one of the major types of assault, and that's rape. History of it, the legality of it, what used to count only as rape and what counts now in a modern legal sense there. We're going to go ahead and spend some time defining and going over some statistics about rape and, some terms here too related to rape, coercion, consent. There's some real big differences in perceptions between those who commit rape versus those that are victimized by rape regarding what constituted consent. You may have heard of how some people think, well, when someone says no, they really mean yes. And so we're going to talk about all that stuff there. We're also going to go over a profile of your typical rapist there and some characteristics there, relationship to the victim there as well, and also some interesting and distressing rape myths. Take a look at those. For example, there's that myth that women provoke it by their dress or, quote, not knowing better, they deserved it, etc. We're going to talk about all that, blaming the victim there, which is some really ugly stuff that we have to go through that there. And we're also going to examine both the short and long-term consequences physically and psychologically of having been sexually assaulted here. The other major portion of the chapter deals with the sexual abuse of children, and we're going to be talking about that. What do we mean by the sexual abuse of children, which is actually not as easy as it sounds to define there. We're also going to be taking a look, as we did for the rapist there, the profile and the different types of sexual abusers here, some of their characteristics and backgrounds there. And like we did for those that are raped, we're going to be taking a look at the consequences, both short and long term, for those that experienced child sexual abuse. We're also going to examine how to prevent and also help those that have experienced sexual abuse as children. And also, more broadly, at the end of the chapter, we're going to be taking a look at least some legal issues surrounding sexual assault and how those have evolved in recent times. And thank goodness the courts have been forward-looking with that perspective there. It's really helped a lot, actually. Our next chapter there is chapter 16. It's all about selling sex, some social and legal issues you can see in the chapter headline there. And so we're going to be talking about, first of all, what do we mean by saying something is, quote, sexually explicit? And we're also going to be taking a look at the distinction, which is a very important one, between things that we might label as merely erotic versus those that might be considered what we call pornographic. And along with that, we're going to be taking a look at what we mean to say by saying something is obscene, and what the Supreme Court of the United States had to say about that. There's actually a legal definition of what constitutes obscenity, believe it or not. We're also going to be taking a look at the effects, of course, of pornography consumption, what that does both in the short and long term to various sorts of persons there. And we're also going to be taking a look at the fact that there's actually been a lot of research in this area here, including, believe it or not, 2 presidential commissions which were charged with the task of trying to find out what these consequences of pornography viewing actually were. They found some pretty helpful things, and some of them weren't so helpful because the research designs really weren't all that great there, but we'll cover all that, which is some pretty fascinating stuff, actually. The last chapter in this unit here is chapter 14, deals with some things you may not have heard of in terms of their labels here, paraphilias and sexual variants. And so fundamentally here, this is what most laypersons call kinky sex. That non-vanilla variety, if you know that term vanilla there. And so we're going to start out the chapter by taking a look at how do we know something is really off the beaten path and is really maybe crossed the line into that abnormal territory. So what standards do we use here to try to figure out if something is abnormal or not? We're going to define what we mean by a so-called paraphilia, and also a sexual variant there. And also that includes the diagnostic criteria for this. There's actually some conditions, for example, pedophilia you may have heard of there. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at that diagnostic criteria, and also some related terminology here, fetish, variant, as I just mentioned there, and just some specific types of all of those things there. You may have heard about, for example, somebody having a foot fetish, for example. So we're going to go ahead and clarify what we mean by that, if you will. We're also going to take a look at how we actually acquire these fetishes or these variants, if you will. And that's going to be some real classic psychology there by examining learning theories there. Maybe you learned about classical conditioning and operant conditioning, maybe back in a general psychology course or another psychology course. So we're going to go ahead and revisit that, and I want you to know that pretty well for the exam. We're also going to be taking a look at some particular topics here as well. Transvestism, which is a pretty fascinating thing that many people misunderstand, and it's often confused with being transgender, which is absolutely nothing of the same sort of thing at all. We're also going to be taking a look at the fascinating world of sadomasochistic practices, or SM sex, sometimes referred to as just dominance and submission. It's mostly about role play in a safe, sane sort of situation, but it is widely misunderstood as being only about pain and humiliation. It's not really all about that there. It's actually more popular and practiced a lot more than you may think. Very fascinating there. And so we're also going to be taking a look at some of the possible treatments and therapy for those with paraphilias there too, and how effective those might be. And that's pretty much going to wrap us up for that last unit. So I'll see you there in lecture, and I hope you enjoy things. And definitely, again, if I post any website links to any particular chapter, definitely check those out. You might find those, hopefully as usual, interesting. And I'll see you in the lecture videos.